If you've ever noticed your grandparents, they kind of start looking like each other after some time. Their energy bodies sort of merge. And that's great, but it's not great for sexual polarity. We know that once you get married, you're not having sex anymore for the majority. If you want to have stronger erections, you want to last longer, I would say maybe don't have to cut, but I would diminish the meat because the meat takes longer for your body to process and your erection quality is negated by your circulation quality. The tantrics had a very different view on open relationships. We are so me, ego based. And if we could be more, who am I when you take away everything? And that's the question we ask ourselves. And how do I surrender that ego that sort of runs us? They brought in open relationships because there's no greater challenge than saying, I willingly am saying, go sleep with someone else, go have sex with someone else. I'm saying yes. For the ego, it's a huge it hurts, right? We in the Tantra world took this on knowing that this was going to diminish our ego, bring us closer to God, to our divine practice of letting our ego go and surrendering to His will. And so that's why we do it.
Welcome everyone to another episode of The Flow Show. Very special guest today, but first a word from our sponsors, Karate Combat, and of course, Bet 105. Big thanks to them. And now a not normal podcast in my genre, but very excited to have Jennelle Gordon on today, also known as Shakti Janelle. So
Yes.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I love just like cross-pollinating with so many amazing entrepreneurs and people who do amazing work in their perspective fields. And I think, intimacy it's a part of our life. And even if you're a business owner, you own companies, you have relationships with everyone, right? With your wife, your children. So that's the work I do. And it bleeds out into, little more spicy things too, but it starts there.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think how spicy we're going to go today. I got your book over here we're going to talk about and bring that in a bit. But I do want to understand for you, when did you first get into specifically Tantra? And sort of when did this become a passion or hobby, or I guess your passion?
Yes. Well, a great question. I think it's always important to understand the why, right? Why do people do what we do? Some people work because they have to and it pays the bills, right? I do this because I love it. It's I've never done drugs or drank, and that's not my thing. I can barely have caffeine. Matcha sometimes will send me over the edge. So I'm like, I've been plant-based since I was 6th grade. So for me, it's my drug. Like I get a high off of doing this work because I sort of love triggering people and challenging them to look at the things that they thought were normalcy or had they've been preconditioned to believe about intimacy, relationships, and sex. And then just to like throw that in their face and not even to believe or agree with me, but to question what they've been told and to see if maybe there's a better way. Maybe, who knows? Yeah. So I got started in this work back in 2012 when I was introduced to Tantra through someone, I call him my angel investor. Basically, I had a pretty intense traumatic life, just really, really rough times, grew up in the foster system.
Where did you grow up?
So I was started off in Texas. So my mother, I was a product of rape. So came into this world pretty intense start to my life. All of that shaped me to where I am now. Went through things no child should ever go through. And it's why I'm so passionate about the work I do with human trafficking and all these things now, because I had those experiences and it was rough. And I look back now, it's interesting. I know you have children. And when you think of your kids, it's just like, you just want them to have just the best. You want them to not have like everything easy because you want them to prepare them for life, but you want to protect them. And when I see my son going through some of these things and he's having fun and experiencing life, it's like, it helps me heal because I never had those things. Mm-hmm. So from that really intense, early start in life, sort of went into the Army, even though I got accepted into the Air Force. I was just in a rough spot. I went ahead and went into the Army because I was waiting for a job in the Air Force. I got injured. They let me go. They sort of like,
What year was this? Were you in the
This
Army?
was in 2001.
Okay.
So I was basically a product of the government from the time product of the state. From the time I was little, I was a warden of the state until I was 24 years old. Very interesting. And then I was in the Army and I got discarded. So the government sort of, that was their property then as well. And then, after that, I fell into the hands of my first trafficker, and I was in Vegas. I was trafficked in the strip clubs. I had no idea that this was happening to me until I got out after. And then that's what my TEDx talk is about. It's coming out this next month. So a lot of awareness happened in my.
Sorry to be ignorant to this, but when you say you're like you mean almost kind of how you were there, and then next thing you knew, it kind of
I had a pimp that was beating the shit out of me if I didn't bring him home $2,000 to $3,000 a night.
Wow.
Like that kind of, like real shit.
And just kind of, but it wasn't.
It was so
it wasn't introduced to you in this way. It was just kind of like, oh, and then it segued in instantly.
People
kind of before you knew it.
People are so confused about this. Everyone watches Taken and they think that that's what human trafficking is, and it's like, that's a great film, and it makes men be like, oh, I hate this. I want to, puts them into like their Shiva, but that's not really how it works. Sound of Freedom, which I still haven't watched yet. I've been like, do I really want to watch it yet? Because I'm just like, I don't know, it might be hard, but it's not what human trafficking looks like. I'm not saying never. Right. But it's more nuanced than that. It's typically people that know them sort of introduce them to it. It's studies have been shown it's friends or families or people they trust, or it's just vulnerable population, which is what I was. No family, no friends, product of the state, blah, 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 trauma. And then they know. So yeah, it eased into that. Got out of that. And that's how I found Tantra. I actually faked my own death. And that's what my TED Talk is about, how to get away from my trafficker.
Now, a quick message from our title sponsor, Bet105, who has the best odds in the game. They deliver with -105 odds on most markets. Better pricing, bigger profits, no limits on winners means they will not ban you for being good. And you can enjoy fast crypto payouts, instant withdrawals, and no hassle. Join the poker community where winning is welcome. Use promo code POKER and get a $50 bonus free bet when you deposit your first $100 today. This was in Texas?
This was in Vegas.
Okay.
After that, I left Vegas and was still in the life because once you're in a pattern of something, you don't really know how to get out of it, right? Unless you have a drastic change in an intervention, or you have enough leverage to get you to change. And so basically, that's how I heard about Tantra, was through someone in the strip clubs in San Antonio who he just saw me and was like, told the waitress, like, I'm supposed to help her. And so he asked this waitress, could you get her number, give her my number? And basically what started was he told me, listen, I have a lot of sexual trauma in my life. And this Tantra workshop I went to in Sedona actually helps me. And I feel like you're not supposed to do this in life. I know this. And I think Tantra is maybe your calling. Like, this is what happened. I can't make this up.
That word is something I understand, but it does seem almost like taboo, or it feels like kind of crazy. Don't understand. Like it's like out there, and it's like not
sacred, not
right.
It's just like a swingery thing.
Yeah, that's what that kind of feels like, that connotation.
It's very, and I didn't really understand that, and I still have a hard time understanding that, because when he sent me to that school, so there was 2 schools, he said, I'll pay for you, whatever. Just find a school, I'll pay for you. So there was 2. There was one in India and Thailand, and of course, since I grew up in Thailand, I felt an affinity to go there.
How many years were you in Thailand?
4.5 years, from 4 to almost 9.
How was that experience?
Interesting, right? I'm just being pulled out of the system. I get adopted, or not even adopted, just placed with this family who's very well-meaning.
How old were you during the 4 years there?
Yeah, I was 4 to 9.
Okay.
And, but they were extreme as fundamental Christian. I say cult. We grew up in a cult, basically.
Wow.
Very wild. So we were so poor. We were supposedly helping other people, but there was times when we didn't have food. I mean, it was great. It was, when I tell you, wild upbringing, wild. So I think when he saw me and he kind of could see some of the pain maybe he had gone through, that's why he sent me to the school.
I'm sorry, I had interrupted you about, wait, so it was either you said India or
Thailand.
Or Sedona, or no, that's a separate.
No, he had gone to a Tantra retreat in Sedona, and that's why he said, you need to study this and teach this. So I went to Thailand. I spent a year there. The school is, when people think of Tantra, they just think of sex immediately. Mm-hmm. They have no idea what it means, that it's a deeply spiritual, highly connected, high vibration, personal development path that brings you to oneness. The ultimate union is what I call it in my book.
Yeah, but speaking, I do want to just put up there. So this is your book, Intimacy, Tantra Master Jennelle Gordon, and then Unf Your Sex Life, Unleashing Your Passionate Intimate Relationships. So this is your first book?
This is my first
Very
book.
cool.
I actually wrote another one, but it will be coming out this summer.
That's awesome.
So
okay, so there. Okay,
that's
gotta
my
get
first
that.
one.
Yeah, very
And
nice.
so
Congrats.
so there is a huge misconception about Tantra. And this is something I didn't really understand because in my school, it's very deeply rooted in a practice that is like 95% very esoteric. So tons of traditional Tantra Katha yoga, which is not like what you do in the studios. It's basically like you sit in a posture and you focus your energy on the center. You focus your mind on the energy center and you just sit here for an hour.
Yeah, I did a 10-day, actually, speaking of Dallas
Vipassana?
and Vipassana.
Yeah.
Maybe you might even know where it's the one in Dallas, right by there.
No,
Like,
but
and I did
I'm
a
glad
10-day, and it was no talking, no writing, no reading, like the craziest experience of
basic
my
food,
life.
right? Did you eat crazy
Yeah,
foods?
no, basic, like
Yeah.
eating and go to bed at whatever, 5 or 6, 7 p.m., wake up
Yes.
at 4 a.m. and
Yes.
no talking, and
Yeah.
it's meditative. And that, I don't, again, I don't do drugs, but I've done acid before, and
Yes.
it was the exact, when I finished it, my wife has the same feeling I had being on that, which
Just-
is wildness.
just open and clear.
but
And that's-
like my whole life, I recapped in my head. Actually, the reason I started a podcast was like right out of that, had a lot of creative ideas, wrote a lot of
'Cause
poems
you're-
and stuff, and I was just
Yes.
completely clear, and it was very, very interesting, very, very spiritual experience. I gotta say, I don't know if I could do it again nowadays because it's like with distractions and that was 10 years ago about, and it was I have kids. I can't imagine being 10 days like just with no communication.
And that's
with
the same with me. When I did this, I was not in school. I was doing, 7 to 10 hours of hatha yoga a day where you're just sitting. I was doing breath work. I was eating buckwheat only. There was nothing. It was just a very, it just the sattvic lifestyle of just completely diminishing the desires, even the sexual desire. So when people think like that was your Tantra school, they just think sexual stuff. It's like,
Right.
no, the first part of the school was just nothing but that. And it was very intense. I pulled up a lot of trauma. I pulled up a lot of things. And I was so clear though. I was crystal freaking clear there. Like everything was just in focus, right? Everything made sense. There was nothing I was afraid of. There was nothing I had shame about. And that was sort of the feeling that I wanted to give to others. I wanted people to not feel shame around sex anymore.
Yeah.
Because shame, we know, is the lowest frequency vibration on the planet, and it interferes in every aspect of our life. But in our sexual intimate life, it really can stop things. And so that is kind of where I just came up with this concept of this is what I want to do.
Have you done ayahuasca or do you have
I haven't. So for me, I'm truly like, I'm clean in a sense that I don't even plant medicines and stuff. It's just not for me. I know it's very useful for other people. And I'm
So
really.
when you say you haven't done drugs, you literally haven't.
When I was younger, yes, I've tried marijuana, but I'm highly allergic to it. Every time people would try to get me to do it, or my pimp would be like, "Smoke this," I'd get anxiety. I feel like I was gonna die. I just hate it.
Yeah.
Even I was in Miami last night after the show, and I was like, people were just like, I was like
Yeah.
trying to breathe. It's not
Yeah.
for me.
Fair
But
enough.
I know ayahuasca has been transformational for many people, and I've had several of my clients who said they would not have come to my retreat had they had not done an ayahuasca journey.
It sounds like this Tantra course or curriculum is sort of in a way like that. There's a way to get an experience to kind of enlighten you or to
So I
change,
like to
right?
take people through what I call a drug-free induced high. Like I can get you, orgasming in your heart. I can get you to experience where you feel such openness, such oneness, such surrender and presence from your spouse that you literally can't take it because the pleasure, the connection feels so immense that you feel like you're going to die. Like these are the places I go, and I don't do drugs or anything. And so if I can give people just a fraction of that, then I've done my job.
I've been married for 8 years, not more, and I told you I met my wife at Burning Man.
Yes.
Very, energetically spiritual. I'm not we're not hippies. We're not, it's not my normal type of scene, but it was great. I loved it. I believe in marriage and one partner. I do.
Yes.
At the same time, my wife and we met. I was single I met her at 27 or 8. Like, I had a lot of fun. I didn't have a girlfriend for years, and I had a great time and just had no commitments, no kids. traveled, did whatever. It was fun.
Yes.
And now, like, I always thought I wanted that, and I believe that I do, and I still do. So I guess let me try to understand your philosophy personally, but also in general, what you believe, because in terms of like one partner, do you believe in that? And also, do you think that that can work, or would say can't, or it's individual? It just, everyone's got their own program.
Their own path. People look at me and I'm the biggest dichotomy and the biggest juxtaposition. And that's okay. I'm very polarizing. I'm actually very conservative and faith, family, values kind of woman, even though the work I do makes it seem like I am not. But I always say to these, and a lot of these people judge me, or a lot of these men won't work with me because they're wives or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm for the family unit. Like, I want people to stay together. I believe in going the extra mile and making things worse. Just because someone cheats, I don't think you should leave. Like, these are my stances, and these are pretty heavy stances, right? So in regards to, do we have one person? Is that like a marriage, a one person marriage? Is that the ticket? I think in theory it could be. And it would be nice if it worked for many people. But many people don't want to do the work to make their marriage work. We put marriage and relationships, LTR, long-term relationships, right, sort of as the last thing on our list of things to do, right? You're busy running the company. You have employees. You have clients. You have this. You have that. You have, I was going to get to that. You have children, right? And we know children are blessings, and they want what they want when they want it, and they need you, and they need your energy. And it's a lot.
Right.
And so it's not like you mean to neglect your wife or your husband, but you do it because what happens often? Sometimes we hurt the people that we're the closest to, right? Not by even meaning to, but proximity. Proximity
You're
is
making assumptions like, okay, we're married, we're good.
Everything's good.
Like,
Everything's
everything else I need to attend to, and then that becomes that. Like, I mean, listen, that's why I want to talk to you about it, but just from a stereotypical sense, and just kind of what I see from my friends and relationships as a whole, and others, and you hear, and just movies and TV, just in general, it's very like there's a honeymoon phase. Obviously, you meet someone, you're in love, and you're like rabbits, and it's like that. Then you have no other commitments. You're not even thinking about your business at that moment. You have no kids, and of course, all these things add to make it more. So if you're not working, it's not going to be necessarily just working as well. So I guess that's sort of the core thing, to put that into the awareness, to bring it back, and to not have it just be on the side, to think about it, talk about it, be present with it, and realize that if you don't do it, then you're very likely to other issues happen.
Well, things get worse, not better, right? If you don't work at them, just like your body. I always say body's the perfect one. If I stop working out, my body's going to show. Even the most fit athlete, they all tell me, I'll lose this if I don't. Maybe it'll take them longer, right? Because they're like conditioned, chiseled, right? But if they stop tearing down those muscles and rebuilding them and stretching them, they're going to lose it. And it's the same thing. Everything in the universe runs in the law of entropy. Things atrophy over time. They do. It just happens. So if we don't work at keeping the sexual polarity alive in the marriage, in the relationship, it's going to die. The flame will go out. And what you said is so true. When you first meet someone, you see a masked version of them. You see this persona of who they supposedly are. But most of the time, people don't come to the relationship authentic. They come with the best version, the best masked version of themselves. They want you to like them. They want you to say, pick me, if you will, accept them. And they don't want to show you their flaws and their shadows right away, because you might turn them down. So what happens is you go through the marriage or the relationship, you're having a lot of sex, things are fun, things are exciting. And then as time goes on, like you said, other things pop up, work, the masks start coming off, right? Kids, this, that. And then the polarity just weakens naturally. And one of the main reasons polarity weakens is because men and women, or husband and wife, whatever you want to call it, they weaken the polarity by not keeping it magnetized. What does that mean? One thing that couples do is they do nothing together. You could be at home. You could be getting off work tonight, right? You come home. Your wife's maybe doing the dishes. The kids might be in bed, or she's putting them to bed, right? And then you're just chilling. Maybe you're not working, but you're just like, men need this, what I call like Shiva downtime, where it's just like scrolling or white noise, or the game. It's on, but you're maybe not even watching, right? It's just like a nothingness, because men are always seeking nothingness. Women want to be filled up, right? And that's how it goes with polarity.
Yeah.
So oftentimes you might be sitting there scrolling. She might be sitting there on a magazine, whatever, just chilling. And that's you're hanging out, or you're even just watching a movie together,
Yeah.
which is not actively engaging to build the sexual polarity. So that's a big mistake that couples make. My advice is like, always, if you're with your partner, your spouse, and it's been a long time, like 8 years, do something together. You can have idle time once in a while. Yeah, you're tired. We get it. But don't just be in the room scrolling or on stuff and consider that. That's not time.
I will say that from, even that there is a phase, like the whole debate about kids in bed or not. And we have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. And like often, I usually we'll put him to sleep and then he'll run in at some point, but at least I have like, go to bed at like 8 and then have 3, whatever, until you go to sleep at least together. It's very nice versus like kids. I know people just will have the kid, like they'll put them in their bed. I mean, that seems like a really bad idea. Not even just the kid is going to be whatever, that just for the reason of that. You don't have that
you don't
intimacy
have
time or
that intimacy
together.
time.
So that is important. I agree on that. And also just to get away, it is nice. Even we live in Miami, we're here. It's like go out, get a hotel, go somewhere for a day or two. It makes a big difference because at your home too, and it is kind of like you think about your kids, you think about your
it's hard
stuff,
to unplug. And that's why I like my retreats, because I do that and it's like 5 days.
Where are your retreats? How often? Do you have a set schedule or is it kind of
It's pretty set. But I just did the numerology podcast, so I'm going to start working with the numbers a little more. Maybe because it'll be weird. I'll have all these people that want to come, but they're like, the date's wrong. I'm like, damn it. And this has been happening for a few years. So I'm like, I got to start checking my numerology dates. I just did the podcast with Gary.
He was just here. I don't know too much about numerology, but I am a believer in that stuff a little bit. Like I like it. Like I think there's some of it's, some of it's out there, but
you feel like there's
something.
truth.
Yeah, there's something to it and it's cool.
Yes.
To place things together.
It's very interesting and fascinating. So I think with that, because the retreat, the one coming up is September. It's in Bali. So I just pick exotic destinations that are connected to, femininity, sexuality. And then the next one will be in Dubai in November. And then basically Valentine's Day, we have one in Tulum. Always every Valentine's Day. What a better gift to give. Because
how did you come up with the name Shakti Living and you do your podcast as well?
Shakti Living. Shakti is, I did a rebrand about 2 years ago. The message I was sending before was it was a little intense. And so I was like, I need to soften things. I need to make things more for every person. Cause it's a lot.
It was more intense from time.
It was the O factors. Oh. And then it was like outstanding orgasmic life. I was like, all right, we gotta mail this down. Shakti Living. And Shakti Living is just like, it's tuning into your divine feminine energy essence. And, but it's not just like, oh, I'm a man. It's like, that's what people don't realize. You have both masculine and feminine energy in you. And those play a role in who you attract and keeping your sexual polarity alive. And so when you talk about like, how do I keep things spicy? If you guys are sleeping together in your same bed, that's a sure way to not keep things spicy.
I saw a clip, might have been Sean's podcast about almost saying, you should almost be in separate beds or rooms.
So separate beds, rooms.
Or if you have living. I heard you
I said it. If you have the resources that you should be in your own house.
That's super interesting.
And it's because
even with kids?
Even with kids. I think it's more challenging, and I know of tons of people who don't live in the U.S., right? Who live in Thailand, who live in all these. I have heard
of some actors or, this is also more common because they're gone or
they're doing it in real estate now too. They're having his and hers bathrooms are very common now, or his and hers bedroom. It's common in real estate now. The concept is when you go to bed at night, you have an energy body. So you have 5 bodies, but I won't get into all those because they're confusing. But the second body is you have the physical and you have the energy. When you sleep at night, your energy bodies do this. And so if you've ever noticed your grandparents or your great-grandparents, they kind of start looking like each other after some time that they've been married for 50 years, 60 years. You're like, they kind of look the same. And it's because of that notion that their energy bodies sort of merge and it sort of creates a union. But that's great, but it's not great for sexual polarity, because if you're the same like energy body, then there's not 2 of you, and you want the definitive masculine and energy so that you can create those moments of the ultimate union during climax. That's what we want, but not all the time. So let there be spaces in our togetherness.
I mean, obviously living apart but married and happily, that's an extreme, probably very
It
not a
is
normal thing that you could do, but
very extreme.
within in the same house, same room or same house or bed, some stuff, some things that could be maybe more doable.
Yeah, so everyone's not going to do that. That's the extreme. The reason why we say separate spaces is because when you're dating, think back to when you're dating. You went over to your wife's now house, but before she wasn't your wife, and you sort of felt her energy, right? You walked into the room and you're like, oh, she has this, and most women have lots of things, right? All this, and you're like, ooh, I kind of feel her. You can tell a lot about a woman by seeing her house. And you just feel that energy. And a lot of men, like, they like that. It's comforting to them because it's like nurturing and soft and feminine and elaborate and ornate. But then you probably go back to your home and it's maybe a little more simple, like, flat screen, this, like more nuance, right? And that is the polarizing of energies in the room because everything has energy.
But in your opinion, do you believe, how big a deal would it be if you had enough room in your house and you had like one room in one room versus like a condo close by, or even down the road? Like, does it really matter? Is it more just a separation that you're not?
I always say, if you want results like everyone else is doing, do what everyone else is doing. Everyone else sleeps together, and their marriage, after they've been married for a while, they stop having sex.
It would be interesting to see
do an experiment.
True statistics, like honest statistics.
I think this is going to be more hard.
I'm saying if you really if you were to look at like dating, honeymoon, marriage, engagement, kids, and then the line, if you really were to like able to see like everyone's actual data, happily or not married, like from a sexual perspective, in terms of like how much, how often, and how all that, like that, it would be a very, I think, enlightening.
There's a lot of there's studies like that, but not so much on living separately. But we know that once you get married, you're not having sex anymore for the majority.
Definitely significantly different. And obviously add in kids, add in this, add in other factors.
It's a lot less.
Course,
so a lot of the couples they were reported to having sex once a month. So that's 12 times a year.
That's insane.
More average was approximately,
that's insane.
2 to 3 times a month, right? And this was more on the bigger end because they were just showing that, like you said, marriage, kids, this diminish it. Now there's always people who are not doing that. I will say it is true, because you're right. If you're not doing, not even just necessarily going to doing work or Tantra or really like deep work, but if you're actually just not even taking date night, so because a lot of couples, I know people that have had 2-3-year-old kids and they haven't had a date night out. So like think about that, even from if you're able to work from home or have a flexible schedule, or you get home, but like the woman's with 2 kids, it's like because then it's the energy too. One of you wants to, the other's exhausted. It's like about,
it has to, like, how does it line up?
You change we talk about all that stuff. You got to change the times of when you're having sex. And there's actually better times for men to have sex than there are for women. Yeah. So it's like a rewiring of what we've done. Right. Typically the tantrics, we don't eat until after we've had sex. So
I did see something, I want to question about diet. Is there any hacks or health? Like was there any garlic or certain things that are just like, not saying people are going to go vegan or vegetarian, but what would you recommend is like some stuff that just like by naturally doing, or not a crazy fix, that could make maybe more energetically or more
stamina?
Like what type of stuff, health or food wise?
There's a lot of different things, right?
Give me like a hot, like easy no's or yeses for that.
Okay. So I think for, if you want to have stronger erections, you want to last longer, I would say maybe don't have to cut, but I would diminish the meat. Because the meat takes longer for your body to process, and your erection quality is negated by your circulation quality. Bad circulation, bad erection. So I remember the tantric men, they're having sex for all day. Literally, that's what they're doing, because our theory is, and this is more like the spiritual stuff, like the more you have sex, the longer you have sex, you can reach meditation and you can reach union. And in that moment of climax of both the male and the female, you go to another state. And in that state, it's just such divine, we'll call it seed energy, that's just pliable, moldable. So this energy, you can do anything with it. It basically makes life, right? That's how you have children. So we have sex for hours to get to that state where both of us climax, and then we just both go into meditation and we just ride that wave. I would remember them just taking handfuls of bee pollen and they were just eating it. like, because it is such a natural.
So bee pollen is
Bee pollen is
interesting.
super key. I remember that there's that was a huge thing. Not eating meat, not eating. If you want to last longer, don't eat till after you have sex, because what happens is as soon as you eat food, the body comes down. It's grounding, right? You know, a lot of times, like me right now, it's like I need to eat something. As soon as I eat something, then like the anxiety, the feeling a little lightheaded and stuff, that comes down because it's grounding you. So if you eat a big meal, you go out and have a steak, you have some fries, you have some this and that, maybe dessert, you drink, then you're like, all right, honey, I'm ready to have sex.
Yeah.
It's like, really? We're like setting ourselves up for failure.
Interesting.
So the tantrics typically make love first, then have dinner later.
Interesting.
And that's a big thing. Anything that includes nitrous oxide. So watermelon's a huge thing. The seeds, they're saying there's some really potent properties in any seeds really, but the watermelon seeds are a huge component of that. And just healthy circulation. That's just
working out, being active. Yeah, that's
building your testosterone is going to be a huge one. Garlic and all those things, there's properties, and those are more like aphrodisiacs, things in that. There's a lot of great herbs that you can take as well. And that's what I formulated is a natural Viagra that I'm going to be bringing to the market, because I really want to see men take this versus the blue pill.
Right.
And this will be a supplement that you take so you never have to take the blue pill.
Interesting. Wow. Very interesting stuff. So if someone wants to go on your retreat, how does that work?
I've had people request to bring their children who are, like high school, because the information around sex for the men and the woman, sexual anatomy, sexual pleasure, different forms of climax. Most people get zero sex education. And the sex education they do get came from school, which was basically about STIs and not getting pregnant. It wasn't anatomy. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It wasn't consciousness. It wasn't respect. It was none of that. It was just like fear and fear. Right. And then from church, it's basically shame and you're going to hell if you do it, if you're outside of wedlock, correct? And one position and no abortion and all these things. That's push, push, push. And what that does is it puts shame, shame, shame into the body. And that correlates with your sexual energy. And that's how you view sex. And then your parents, like you said, most of the time, they're not going to tell you anything, or they'll tell you something that they're embarrassed or uncomfortable to tell you. So then you feel weird about it. And then most people will just get their education from like trial and error. Let's see how this works. Or they'll watch porn, which we know is not real, and it's not real life, and it's not how women want to be treated. So
let me ask you on this book.
Yes.
Okay, great. You have, this, when did this launch officially?
It's been a few months. It's been a few months that it launched, but we're trying to push it now.
Is this something more of like,
it's like a manual to use.
So a manual, but if you, say a couple married 10 years, great relationship, everything's good, obviously can always be better in anything. What would be in your scheduling, do you think would be a good thing you could incorporate as a couple to work on? Is it spending an hour on a tantra, like doing a exercise?
Yeah.
Is it talking more about stuff like this? Is it having a space? Okay, not talking. But yeah, okay. So what is it? What would you like per week? Let's give a week schedule. Yeah. What would be like an ideal programming for
I love what you said about you said date nights and things like that. What happens when most people come to my retreats is because they're themed. Every day is themed, different color, different food, different activity. It's a sensory experience. We involve every sense in that time.
How long is the retreat?
5 days, 4 nights. Long enough, you check in, check out. So it's really 3 full. So we want to immerse you so that you pick up these rituals, you pick up these concepts. And so when you get home, you integrate it. And what I found is most couples say, we started doing that. We have a date night every week. We dress up. We do an activity. We do something. And then we do something that we learn from your retreat to build presence, build surrender, build that vulnerability so that we can go deeper in intimacy and sex. And so to answer your question, I think that's the biggest thing that couples need when they've been married for a long time and everything's quote great. And I say if you're not fighting or not having conflict, then I don't know how passionate your sex life is, right? Because if you agree on everything and everything's a yes, then it's like, you're probably just having missionary sex, like the same way every time,
Yeah.
with the socks on,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So I think to answer your question, the biggest thing couples could do is just to come home from work or come home from their days if they're not working and just be present with each other. No chatting, set a timer. We have some activities. They're in my book. We do soul gazing. We do hand to heart breathing together. And there's a bunch of things. I can't get into all of them, but you can get the book and it's, very easy to do.
Yeah. I think for me too, I think it's like, the biggest thing is about awareness. I think that's like to really just, I find myself, I like meditating. I don't do it enough, although I know it's great. And that's sort of the thing. If you can't find 10, 15 minutes, and especially if you're your own boss, you're like finding ways where like, okay, I'm not meditating or I'm not doing this. Like if you really don't have 20, 30 minutes a day to either, even meditating probably is great with your spouse to do that and kind of energetically be
and that's
together
what this stuff is. We teach you active meditation to do together.
Do you feel that you prefer like a connection with one person, and is that your sort of thing? Or are you literally like, I'm open to
whatever.
Yeah. How do you personally feel?
I'm a Virgo. I'm very loyal.
I'm a Virgo as well.
Are you really?
Yeah, we have the same initials, JG.
Yeah. I'm 9-9. So
9-5. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we're close. Yeah. So I like going deep with one person. Honestly, I do think that I want to say this very carefully. I'm sure I'm trying to choose my words just very, very intuitively. I think that it's easy to have multiple relationships with multiple women. And maybe easy isn't the best word, because you can get caught up in that if you're not clear and you don't have communication and you're not being honest. And I think that's what happens today. Guys, they want to just shop around because there's so much candy in the candy store. And they're like, I want to try this. I want to try that. And they just want more, like you said, more. And oftentimes what I see happens is these guys who say they want more, variety. I want to try every candy in the candy shop. In the end, they get sick of candy. And it's just like they want more. They're left feeling empty. You eat so much candy, you're still hungry. You never get full of candy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like until you get that grounding, that real authentic connection, until you can go vulnerable with yourself and go get that vulnerable with you and meet someone in that same place, everything else is kind of superficial. Now, with that being said, I do feel a lot of people who have intimacy issues with themselves, they'll see a lot of women to mask that. Because you don't have to go super deep when you're dealing with 5 or 10 women. You just, the next person, the next. Even with women who today they want, if a man's not talking to them, ignoring them, they'll go seek validation just because they can't sit in the moments of silence without someone giving them energy or attention. And women, we want to be seen. It is natural for us. But it's like, we don't have to just go for another guy just because the guy that we're talking to right now is busy at work. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to have that. So, but about open relationships, I think, is a cop-out when people just want to cheat often. They want to experience some new yoni, if you will, and they want to experience it. And so they might say, oh, let's do open. The tantrics had a very different view on open relationships. We thought that we are so me, ego based. And if we could be more, who am I? And like, who am I when you take away everything, when you take away your name, when you take away your role as a husband, a father, a CEO, when you take all that away, what's left? And that's the question we ask ourselves. So in order to get more to that question of who am I and how do I surrender that ego that sort of runs us, right? They brought in open relationships, because there's no greater challenge than saying, I willingly am saying, go sleep with someone else, go have sex with someone else. I'm saying yes to do that. And